I have one question for you. Dead or school? Games are so often made by giant corporations that squeeze every bit of soul out of their projects with copy and paste storylines, rehashed mechanics, and predatory practices. So it's genuinely refreshing when a game is made with passion and heart. Dead or School is just such a game, developed by the 3-person team from Studio Nanafushi, following an Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign that failed to meet its target. Nevertheless, they pushed forward to realize their vision, releasing on PS4, PC, and Switch in 2018. Is Dead or School perfect? No. It has a bonkers storyline about a schoolgirl fighting mutants, often outdated visuals, and rough edges throughout. Despite that, there's something truly special here. Any minor gripes melt away after the first few minutes with its fun mix of platforming, combat, exploration, and a sprinkling of fanservice. This is such a fundamentally satisfying experience, it deserves a lot more attention than it ever got. You'd be forgiven for thinking this is a visual novel based on how much exposition you get at the jump, featuring young ladies with inexplicably tight shirts. But hey, fabric's hard to come by in the apocalypse.
You know what? He's right.
The setup is that the human race was contaminated by an unknown virus that turned a large portion of the population into ravenous mutants. Those uninfected retreated underground, where they've remained for generations. Most people have accepted their fates to toil in the dark underground recesses, but restlessness is growing amongst the younger generation, who are drawn to the forbidden world above.
Forbidden donut.
We play as Hisako, who learns about these magical places on the surface called schools, where young people would gather, learn, and play together. She's captivated by this symbol of hope and plans to head to the surface to build a school where she and her friends can live in happiness. Her grandmother, inspired by her fire, gives Hisako her old school uniform and encourages her to arm herself, gather allies, and fight for her dream. Hisako sets off on her adventure clad in her schoolgirl uniform because Japan. Okay, so admittedly the setup is ridiculous, but it's actually the catalyst for an interesting, very sincere story that uses its naive protagonist to deliver a message of hope in a bleak world. As the adventure progresses, Hisako uncovers the truth behind the war and the motivations of those in power. With some great twists along the way, it builds to a surprisingly epic climax. Dead or School was developed as a what-if side story to director and artist Mokusai Zaiju's self-published sci-fi manga Machine Doll Nanami-chan. And while the story does a great job of propelling you forward, the gameplay is where it really shines. What we have here is a beefy, side-scrolling 2D platformer with tight controls, weighty combat, lots of loot, satisfying progression, and some seriously tough and varied challenges. You'll navigate through the twisting environments, jumping and double jumping on platforms, rescuing refugees, finding the means to open up new paths, and fighting hordes of enemies. There's a surprising level of depth in the weapon system, with a lot of flexibility for tricking out Hisako in the best implements of death. She's equipped with 3 weapon slots, a melee weapon, a gun, and a heavy weapon. Each weapon type has its own strengths and weaknesses, like high stopping power but slow rate of fire. As you traverse the dank hallways of the subterranean wasteland, you'll continuously acquire all types of new weapons and gear. Each weapon has base stats for damage, durability, weight, reload times, and more, and may have additional passive abilities like reduced stamina use or increased damage against specific enemy types, that type of thing. You can equip up to 2 components to each weapon to provide various buffs. But wait, there's more. You can also increase the durability of each weapon and apply modifiers that further add benefits or potential hindrances. The twist is you won't know what the modifiers actually do until you apply them. There's no one correct weapon loadout, and you'll have the flexibility to dial it all in based on your playstyle and the loot you've acquired. Dead or School is built around encounters, reminding me of Oni-chanbara, where you'll move from one save point to the next, getting ambushed by enemies along the way, and will have to clear them out before you can proceed. These aren't random, so if you're struggling, you can prepare specifically for what you know is just around the corner before trying again. Enemy types are drip-fed throughout the game, so you're constantly facing something new. The sheer variety in enemy types and attack patterns, not to mention the huge bosses, means that all 3 weapons come in handy, so you'd better get familiar with all of them. There's also an excellent dodge roll mechanic, which both provides generous invincibility frames for negating attacks, as well as a slow time mechanic if you time it just right, similar to Bayonetta's Witch Time. Watch your stamina bar though. This isn't a game where you can just hammer the attack and dodge button and hope for the best. And the difficulty is no joke. It doesn't quite rise to the level of, say, a Soulsborne, but there were sections and bosses I had to try a dozen times or more before I got the right loadout and had their patterns down. The good news is you can change the difficulty at any time if you really hit a wall. Okay, so the visual of Hisako running through the subways and abandoned sewers, slicing and dicing through waves of mutant creatures wearing a schoolgirl uniform is already quite a sight. But if you take enough damage, your uniform is damaged too. It's not quite as gratuitous as, say, Schoolgirl Zombie Hunter, but it's still pretty entertaining. For every kill, you'll earn experience that you can use to upgrade Hisako's skills and add new moves. Now what I thought was cool is if you fall in battle, you don't leave that run empty-handed. Your progression is saved, and you keep any experience you've already earned. Your only penalty is a small cash hit, which I appreciated, so you always feel like you're making progress. The maps are varied, dense, and packed with all sorts of branches from the critical path that allow you to acquire optional collectible souvenirs and rescue trapped refugees. These are usually hidden beyond some sort of challenge, often providing the most interesting set pieces in the game. One thing Deader School does really well is mark all of your objectives on the minimap, so there's little chance of missing a sub-objective, and even if you end up taking on a boss that ends the level, you can revisit it later. In addition to this genuinely useful map, the levels are broken up into subsections. Each of these are assigned a save point that you'll be able to fast travel between. Visually, Deader School is a mixed bag. At times you'd swear this is a PS3 game with muddy textures and simple level geometry. And then there are these times where the game looks great with tons of enemies and projectiles flying around the visually dense environments. It never looks cutting edge, mind you, but it's a lot of fun taking it all in. The anime characters have a great art style, but the visual novel scenes are mostly static images, which is a shame since a little more animation would go a long way. But for such a small development team, they get some grace here. You'll explore a wide variety of diverse environments that really showcase the epic scale of her journey, from claustrophobic sewer tunnels to sprawling and chaotic surface streets. While the zoomed-out 2D perspective gives a full view of the action, it makes the characters too small, and the obtrusive, albeit stylish HUD takes up too much real estate. I would have preferred a smaller HUD and a more zoomed-in overall camera. This game has way more content than I was expecting. Now for you completionists, good news, there's nothing missable, and you can get all trophies in a single playthrough. You'll want to find all of the souvenirs and rescue all of the refugees, which is easy enough. And there are a few trophies like spending 30,000 yen or getting 100 enhancements that may take some grinding, but with proper preparation, they aren't too painful. All in, you're looking at around 20 hours to do everything. Now there was an issue where all of the trophies were in Japanese, but thankfully that's all been fixed now. Deader School is a clear labor of love, with an interesting, sincere, and good-natured story. Satisfying, weighty combat with deep character customization. Huge, well-designed levels with varied and interesting challenges. With tons of style and charm, there's something truly special here. And if you're looking to break from the corporate cookie-cutter mold, then it's time to answer the question, Deader School. Okay, that was Dead or School. If you liked the video, hit like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want another game that you haven't played, check out my video right here. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.